And hello, I'm Dan Lutz, and welcome to WWG1WGA.love Frontlines. Where we go, when we go, all frontlines. Frontlines in the war against the cabal, deep state, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the ones that have been trying to basically take everything and leave nothing for everyone else behind. Now, we've discussed many different levels of this. We've come at it from many different angles. We can go back, tens of thousands of years, or we can go back hundreds of years, to see what we're dealing with. But in any case, we're really looking at a group of people that have set themselves apart from the rest of humanity, think that they are special because of their blood, and they then want to control everyone because they are smarter and better than everyone else. And because of all the money and power, they get into a self-delusion that this is the case. But we see that things are about to change. In fact, they have changed, and it's part of their own making, because they set up the system to collapse. And when that chaos happens, anything can come down. Someone transformative such as Trump can come into office and be part of a different game, right? That they're not used to. So I have queued up a video that's from Anonymous Official. And what now, just a note on anonymous, especially anonymous official. I do not know if this anonymous has anything to do with the original anonymous. It could be very much just someone just decide, hey, I'm going to be anonymous official and putting up a site. I do see that there's a lot of repeated material a lot of times from things, but in this case, this is taking some information that I think is very much about who are the Illuminati, who are the cabal, the deep state, and the Rothschilds. And I'm going to, it's about 15 minutes, and I'm going to make some commentary along the way. But I'm going to encourage everyone else to also to participate. And if you have anything to add, please do. I'm going to post this now in the Where We Go, When We Go All.love Telegram group. So if you'd like to join in there, there we go. It's posted. So again, I'm going to cue this up.
All leaders in Washington, whom we elected to safeguard our nation and our Constitution, are the betrayers, and that behind them are a comparatively small group of men whose sole objective is to enslave the whole world of humanity in their satanic plot of one world government. This satanic plot was launched back in the 1760s, when it first came into existence under the name of the Illuminati. This Illuminati was organized by one Adam Weishaupt, born a Jew, who was converted to Catholicism and became a Catholic priest, and then, at the behest of the then newly organized House of Rothschild, defected and organized the Illuminati. Naturally, the Rothschilds financed that operation. Since then, beginning with the French Revolution, has been promoted by the Illuminati, operating under various names and guises. I say under various names and guises because after the Illuminati was exposed and became too notorious, Weishaupt and his co-conspirators began to operate under various other names. In the United States, they set up what they called the Council on Foreign Relations, commonly referred to as the CFR. And this CFR is actually the Illuminati in the United States. And its hierarchy, the masterminds in control of the CFR, to a very great extent, are the descendants of the original Illuminati conspirators.
So we're going back in this case just hundreds of years, in the 1780s and so on. At that time, American Revolution had taken place, and the French Revolution was at hand. And so there was the conversion from Jewish to Catholic. But to point out something, the Jewish that they're referring to is Khazarian. These are Baal worshippers, the ones that had to pick between Christianity and Muslims because they were in the middle of the two warring sides, and they decided to go Jewish, and in that they continued with their Baal worshipping pagan practices, and this is where the Rothschilds came from, the original family. So you can see the conversion into the Catholic Church, and then from there into becoming a priest, and then also then setting up the Illuminati. This is a very interesting graphic they have up here. They have the order, right? Chapter 322, Skull and Bones, the order. We've also heard that is what the 13 bloodline families had called themselves. So you can see a connection there. The other side is the group, Rhodes Midler Round Table. And then we have the Bilderbergs in the middle. And the Council 500, the Atlantic Council, the CFR. Can't quite read that. Something of institutional affairs. Right, but you can see the Fabian Socialist Society, the British Labour Party, Club of Rome on that side, House of Rockefeller over on this side. And we'll push play so we see some of this.
But to conceal
I don't know, back a little bit, or we'll miss it.
various other names, in the United States, they set up what they called the Council on Foreign Relations, commonly referred to as the CFR. And this CFR is actually the Illuminati in the United States. And its hierarchy, the masterminds in control of the CFR, to a very great extent, are the
Central Committee of the Communist Party, Bohemian Club, Trilateral Commission, CIA, MI5, World Peace Council, UNESCO, UNICEF, WHO, IMF, World Court, World Bank, Federal Reserve, Atlantic Council. I can't see what's up there. The 13 families are up. Families, the Grand Druid Council. Anyway, I wish I could see more of this photo. It would be really good, but we'll continue with this. Where's the audio? Oh, it's loading. Well, okay, well, let's see if I can get past this. Back it up a little bit. Play. Okay, well, I've got an alternative here. Take me a moment. It looks like we're getting some game playing going on the system there, but it's all right. We will. I'll go and find it and do it as a screen share. We'll go from that. Okay. This will leave you speechless. It's actually. Yeah, hard to find. Okay. There we go.
whom we elected to safeguard our nation and our Constitution are the betrayers, and that behind them are names to American sounding names. For example, the true names are the descendants of the original Illuminati conspirators. But to conceal that fact, most of them changed their original family names to American sounding names. For example, the true name of the Dillons, Clarence and Douglas Dillon, once Secretary of the U.S. Treasury Department, is Lepowski.
This is Frankfurt, Germany. 50 years after the Bank of England opened its doors, a goldsmith named Amschel Moses Bauer opened a coin shop, a counting house, in 1743. And over the door, he placed a sign depicting a Roman eagle on a red shield. The shop became known as the Red Shield Firm, or in German, Rothschild. When his son, Amschel Meyer Bauer, inherited the business, he decided to change his name to Rothschild. Amschel soon learned that loaning money to governments and kings was more profitable than loaning to private individuals. Not only were the loans bigger, but they were secured by the nation's taxes. Mayer Rothschild had 5 sons. He trained them all in the skills of money creation, then sent them out to the major capitals of Europe to open branch offices of the family banking business. His first son, Amschel Mayer, stayed in Frankfurt to mind the hometown bank. His second son, Solomon, was sent to Vienna. His third son, Nathan, was clearly the most clever. He was sent to London at age 21 in 1798, 100 years after the founding of the Bank of England. His fourth son, Karl, went to Naples, and his fifth son, Jacob, went to Paris. In 1785, Mayer Amschel moved his entire family to this larger house, a 5-story dwelling he shared with the Schiff family.
So just to make a point here, when we talk about the Schiff family, if we look at who is in the U.S. Congress that is actually leading the charge against Trump, is Adam Schiff. Is there any family connection? I wonder. I don't. They tend to keep all this in the family, and they get in positions of power to maintain power. That's how they keep their monopoly. We'll continue.
This house was known as the Green Shield. The Rothschilds and the Schiffs would play a central role in the rest of European financial history and in that of the United States. The Rothschilds broke into dealings with European royalty here at Williams Hall, the palace of the wealthiest man in Germany, in fact, the wealthiest monarch in all Europe, Prince William of Hesse-Kassel. At first, the Rothschilds were only helping William speculate in precious coins. But when Napoleon chased Prince William into exile, he sent 550,000 pounds, a gigantic sum at that time, to Nathan Rothschild in London with instructions for him to buy consols, British government bonds, also called government stock. But Rothschild used the money for his own purposes. With Napoleon on the loose, the opportunities of investments were nearly limitless.
Now, point out something. They received £500,000, and he didn't use it for the purpose that was intended, right? He used it, to make money, regardless of the interest being paid on the shares of the stock of the Crown of England, the consols. Now, I just want to point out, because this actually becomes a very important point, that they had, number one, through fraud, used the money for some other purpose. They made money off of someone else's money they were given charge of. Not very ethical. Now, we'll go on to say that they actually did pay the gentleman, Williams, his money back, as well as the profit he would have made on the interest. But they kept all the rest of the money for themselves. All right, we'll go back and continue.
William returned here sometime prior to the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. He summoned Rothschild and demanded his money back. The Rothschilds returned William's money with the interest the British consuls would have paid him had the investment actually been made. But the Rothschilds kept all the past profits they had made using William's money. Nathan Rothschild later bragged that in the 17 years he'd been in England, he'd increased his original 20,000 pound stake given to him by his father by 2,500 times. By cooperating within the family, the Rothschilds soon grew unbelievably wealthy. By the mid-1800s, they dominated all European banking and were certainly the wealthiest family in the world. They financed Cecil Rhodes, making it possible for him to establish a monopoly over the diamond and gold fields of South Africa. In America, they financed the Harrimans and railroads, the Vanderbilts and railroads and the press, and Carnegie in the steel industry, among many others.
So another comment. Now we've been learning more about the Paysier family. This is the French nobility. They are the ones that left it and also were financing things, but they needed to stay in hiding because they were French nobility, and the French Revolution had basically ousted them from France, but they still had their wealth. So supposedly, this is also some of the money that was backing the Rothschilds, and also backed a lot of the American railroads and other things. So the Rothschilds were working off of other people's money, and then when the Rothschild was bragging that he had made 2,500 times his original stake, that was 50 million pounds at that time. If you said it was 50 billion, you want to compare it to today's dollars, I don't know if that would be exactly, but that we're really talking about some huge amount along those lines. So, all right, let us continue.
In fact, J.P. Morgan was thought to be the richest man in America. But after his death, it was discovered that he was actually only a lieutenant of the Rothschilds. Once Morgan's will was made public, it was discovered that he owned only 19% of J.P. Morgan companies. By 1850, James Rothschild, the heir of the French branch of the family, was said to be worth 600 million French francs, 150 million more than all the other bankers in France put together. He built this mansion called Ferrier, just east of Paris. Wilhelm I, on seeing it, exclaimed, "Kings couldn't afford this. It could only belong to a Rothschild." Another 19th century French commentator put it this way: "There is but one power in Europe, and that is Rothschild." There is no evidence that their predominant standing in European or world finance has changed.
There is a similar establishment of the Illuminati in England, operating under the name of the British Institute of International Affairs. There are similar secret Illuminati organizations in France, Germany, and other nations operating under different names. And all these organizations, including the CFR, continuously set up numerous subsidiary or front organizations that are infiltrated into every phase of the various nations' affairs. But at all times, the operations of these organizations were and are masterminded and controlled by the internationalist bankers, who in turn were and are controlled by the Rothschilds. As revealed in News Bulletin number 122, one branch of the Rothschild family had financed Napoleon. Another branch of the Rothschilds, both branches the real masterminds of the Illuminati, financed Britain, Germany, and the other nations in the Napoleonics. Immediately after the Napoleonics, the Illuminati assumed that all the nations were so destitute and so weary of that they'd be glad for any solution. So the Rothschild stooges set up what they called the Congress in Vienna. And at that meeting, they tried to create the first League of Nations, their first attempted one world government, on the theory that all the crowned heads of the European governments were so deeply in debt to them that they would willingly or unwillingly serve as their stooges. But the Tsar of Russia caught the stench of the plot and completely torpedoed it. The enraged Nathan Rothschild, then the head of that dynasty, vowed that someday he or his descendants would destroy the Tsar, and his descendants did accomplish that very in 1917. The Illuminati operates on the very long-range basis. Whether it will take scores of years or even centuries, they have dedicated their descendants to keep the plot boiling until they hope the conspiracy is achieved.
Okay. So we see that they finance all the different sides of the war to create all of the problems of war. And then came up with a solution, and that was the League of Nations, selling them on the idea that one world government would basically stop the wars, right? Because it's so horrific. Again, they were responsible. It doesn't go into the part where they use the Napoleon War, the defeat of Napoleon to acquire the crown of England by purchasing it, by driving the stock of the country down, the stock of the crown down to pennies, or what's it called, shillings on the pound, to make it so devalued that they could buy it all back up, and they did. So again, gaining more and more power. After that, they were already the power of elite of Europe. Now, if you want to look at a couple of other things, what else was going on back in those times around the world? Say in Asia, say in China, say in Indonesia, India. Now, they knew of the great wealth that was in Asia, India. The British, were already, were doing trade around the world, right? They had set up, in China, Hong Kong, throughout all of the Indian Ocean, throughout Africa. So there was a worldwide amount. Now, this doesn't really go into anything outside of Europe or United States, right? But there was a whole other side of this that was going on, where they were looking to gather up all the wealth of the world. And again, how would they do that? Same way, create wars. They just needed to get bigger wars and make them world wars. But put the politicians and the monarchies out in front, and they stayed in the back, financing and absorbing the wealth. All right, back. We'll continue. Four methods the Rothschild's family Illuminati used to achieve their world dominance.
Number one, use monetary and bribery to obtain control of men already in high places in the various levels of all governments and other fields of endeavor. Once influential persons had fallen for the lies, deceits, and temptations of the Illuminati, they were to be held in bondage by application of political and other forms of blackmail, financial ruin, public exposure to themselves and loved members of their families. Do you realize how many present top officials in our federal government in Washington are controlled in just that way by the CFR? Number two.
Let's go over number one a little bit. So we're talking about a lot about the blackmail and the dark road that they set them down upon. Those giving them more and more power, the more and more down the dark path they got, because more blackmailable. And this is what they've done worldwide. It's not just, again, in America. It's not just in Europe. It is done worldwide. And their system is global, because they're financing all of the countries. The central banking system has been established. Basically all countries have a central bank that's owned by Rothschild. So this is we can say Rothschild. We can just say by the cabal. This is, again, we start talking about the 13 bloodlines. There's just different sectors that we have to look at, but we're really looking at this point just the banking But when we separate that out and look at the world, different power structures, governance, corporations, religions, they were all being manipulated. Right. Well, let us continue.
Illuminati and the faculties of colleges and universities were to cultivate students possessing exceptional mental ability, belonging to well-bred families with international leanings, and recommend them for special training in internationalism. Such training was to be provided by granting scholarships to those selected by the Illuminists. That gives you an idea what a Rhodes Scholarship means. It means indoctrination into accepting the idea that only a one-world government can put an end. That's how the United Nations was sold to the American people. All such scholars were to be first persuaded and then convinced that men of special talent and brains have the right to rule those less gifted on the ground that the masses don't know what is best for them physically, mentally, and spiritually. In addition to the Rhodes and similar scholarships, today there are 3 special Illuminati schools located in Gordonstown in Scotland, Salem in Germany, and Anavrita in Greece. These 3 are known ones, but there are others that are kept undercover. Prince Philip, the husband of Britain's Queen Elizabeth, was educated at Gordonstown at the instigation of Lord Louis Mountbatten, his uncle, a Rothschild relative. Number 3, all influential.
Okay, so it was about grabbing the individuals that from all of the that were the smartest, and really grabbing the cream of the crop of the world. Those children that would be really the hope of mankind were grabbed and used in a way that was counter to all of mankind. It was basically for their power structure, convincing them that they had the better solution to the world, right? By they would be, let's say, chosen to rule the world because of their talents. Now, sending them down the path of these ritualistic systems to have them go down the road of the dark side, further giving them more power the more they went down. And again, so it's all very intoxicating, right? They, taking these individuals who are talented and moving them into those positions of power around the world. So we can see that this is effectively, they are robbing all of humanity in this way, because those that could achieve a lot for the good of all mankind are now taught to separate from the rest of humanity, to think of them as something other than the chosen people, to use a phrase. Right. We'll continue.
People trapped into coming under the control of the Illuminati, plus the students who had been specially educated and trained, were to be used as agents and placed behind the scenes of all governments as experts and specialists, so they would advise the top executives to adopt policies which would, in the long run, serve the secret plans of the Illuminati one world conspiracy and bring about the destruction of the governments and religions they were elected or appointed to serve. Number 4, perhaps the most vital.
Well, it makes sense, right? They put everyone in a position of power. You've trained them. Now you basically install them. And so this is why everyone that's in government of any power position has been placed there. There are many people in government that are not part of this. So I like to use the figure that was done by Roger Bernard, who was the banker that basically got out because he didn't want to follow through on the more gruesome side of the rituals, to put it very lightly. But he said that there was 8,500 people that ruled the world, all based around the Bank of International Settlements, BIS. Now, beyond those 8,500, there's going to be 10 times that, right? 20 times that are around them, that they are their management staff. So we're talking about 150,000 people that are out there that are controlled by these 8,000. And of course, you know, the 8,000 have the group. Maybe there's the 300, right? The Council of 300, or the 301 families, however you want to look at it. There's the high table, if we take John Wick's terms, of the 13 bloodline families. So the hierarchy is there, but they install the people. They create the situation where they have the ability to manipulate. And so the rest of the workers that are filled in throughout the government systems, you know, they just play the part. They get their paycheck, they go home, and they rinse and repeat. All right, we'll continue the fourth point.
Directive in White House plan was to obtain absolute control of the press, at that time the only mass communications media, to distribute information to the public, so that all news and information could be selected, so that the masses could be convinced that a one-world government is the only solution to our many and varied problems. Now, do you know who owns and controls our mass communications media? I'll tell you, practically all the movie lots in Hollywood is owned by the Leymans, Kuhn, Loeb and Company, Goldman Sachs, and other internationalist bankers. All the national radio and TV channels in the nation are owned and controlled by those same internationalist bankers. The same is true of every chain of metropolitan newspapers and magazines, also of the press wire services, such as Associated Press, United Press International, etc. The supposed heads of all those media are merely the fronts for the internationalist bankers, who in turn compose the hierarchy of the CFR, today's Illuminati in America. Now can you understand why the Pentagon's press agent Sylvester so brazenly proclaimed that the government has the right to lie to the people? What he really meant was that our CFR-controlled government had the power to lie to and be believed by the brainwashed American people.
All right, there we go. So that sums it up. It's the controlled media is that last step, right? To control what you think by providing you only certain information, tailoring that information for their message, the narrative. Now, the internet has basically given them the power, more power, and they wanted to absorb that. But it's also been a double-edged sword. It's also allowed us to communicate. It's allowed us to get our information and share it, and then decide what is real and what's not real. What is meant to control us to think one way or the other. You know, all sorts of systems, and it's many layers, right? There's going to be good players and bad players in all the organizations that try to do their best. You know, again, you know, Fox News, controlled opposition. They put certain things there to get to try and move it when we're too much focused on one thing. They say, oh, start talking about this. That's controlling this, because they know that there's going to be another side coming out. They have to control that. So you have 90% of the media coming out, mainstream media, and talking all about the one message that they want to get out there. That's the repeat. They're all the same talking points, the 3 a.m. talking points. They get it and they say, we're going to say these phrases today, and they pass them out, and everyone goes along with it. There's no news reporting. They don't investigate. All they do is basically tell the story as best they can, right? But the true digging is now taking place with the ones that are the alt media, that dig in and find out what the information. We try and find out what actually is going on. That means you got to move, you got to do things, you have to investigate. And that's what they haven't been able to overcome. And that's why we see this mass silencing going on right now across the internet. Again, it's the big tech giants that are shutting down the communications from people that they don't want to do. And they're doing it in the same method as the boiling frog, right? They do it over time. They slowly increase the temperature. They slowly quiet the voices, so you don't notice it all in one fell swoop. And they have those canaries in the mind that people can ignore because they're an annoying canary, such as Alex Jones. Controlled opposition or not, it doesn't matter. It's just that he is being silenced. Now, again, I loved Alex Jones, all the information, and I'd followed for years. But always, wondered, well, is there controlled opposition here or not? Really doesn't matter. There is good information that comes from that source, but you have to always be aware. What are they trying to get us to focus on, and what are they trying to, divert us from? And keep that in mind, and then we can deal with it. So this is the situation, right? We're out here right now, getting the information. We have to, we know what their plan is. There's 4 points to their plan. We know how we need to act, to take hold and do those, see what they've done and make sure that we realize that we're gonna act differently. Now, could you, I used to think it would be a really good idea to send your kids to the best colleges, right? When I was young, I ended up not going to the best colleges when I started looking around. Really, I said, because when I saw what was going on, I actually had a kind of a unique, early college years. I actually was going to college and high school at the same time. At the age of 16, I started going to UCLA. That was a specialized program for the gifted, children. I was taking advanced mathematics. And I was, while I was there, I got to see, college life at a young age. I also ended up, because I had a student ID, I actually ended up working as a student in some medical labs. I volunteered and then ended up getting paid. They didn't know I was quote unquote underaged. I didn't even think of that as a problem at the time. I only realized much later that had occurred. But I got to see college life. So when I actually was choosing what college, I ended up first, instead of going directly to a regular college or an elite college that I could have applied for, I decided that I wanted to learn electronics. So I actually went to a trade college first. I got a bachelor's of science in electronic engineering, and I graduated with a only getting all A's except for one class I got a B in. And there was a controversy around that B. I was really upset. But I then, while I was doing that, I also, while I started also working at TRW as an internship while I was doing that, learning electronics. And after that, I went into a regular college. I went into Cal State Long Beach for a master's in electrical engineering. But when I went there, I saw that they had free speech zones, and I said, I would never step foot in a free speech zone to say what I had to say. I had some challenging moments. There were some run-ins with people. I said, you're nuts. Why would you ever want to do that? Anyway, I got to see that some of the things there, and I avoided it, and because something felt wrong about the colleges. I couldn't say now that this would be the best way to go to send your children to college. Really, because it's indoctrination. To see what's happening there in today's colleges, about it being really set up to that the only way to fix things is with a one world government, socialist system, where everyone is taken care of, the promise, right, which never occurs. Of course, in order for to get there, you have to kill off all the ones that are not, supporting the idea. Right? So does this make any sense? No. If you go back to where this, again, Edge of Wonder did a great series, I think 4 or 5 on the deep state religion, which is socialism, communism, fascism, Nazism, sadism, and to understand what was put there and why they're training everybody. This education, the training the animals, the people, to do what they want, to act as their slaves. So we know what we must do. We must act and build up our families and strengthen them. Look at what is natural law and abide by what is the natural order of things. Ignore these ideas that they put out there in society, and don't be trained. So go with what's in your heart and focus on moving us forward by getting the information out about what we need to do to correctly create a new system, a new world abundance system that is decentralized, and every where the power rides first with the people, and then moves out from every individual to your loved ones, the people in your immediate circle, and to then your neighbors, and then your neighborhoods, and then your towns, and your regions, and then your states and your provinces, and you keep moving the power out, but everything must reside with the people, not with a centralized authority. And we come together for specific reasons. That's when we bind together to solve a problem. And we must not be lazy about it. We must not sit there and say, well, let the government take care of it. We must put people in place that are there, that we know who they are, and we know what their loyalties are, and we hold them accountable when they act inappropriately. When they go against what they've said. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and they get into the office and they don't do that. In fact, they join this group over here, right? Anyway, let's go now to the chat, and let's see. So if anyone, again, I posted the link. If anyone wanted to join, you're welcome to come in and be part of this. Scroll down here. End up sharing the link one moment. Again, I did the live chat that we covered yesterday. I can't see the top. Let's see if I do it this way. Yeah, I can only go so far back because I know I'm the first one in the room. I said hello. I had some. Let me share my screen so I'll tell you what I'm looking at here. Okay, so what I got here at the top, and I'm going to switch back to top chat, live chat. Yeah, see, it does this. I don't get everything. Don't know why that is. See, it's right here at 9:22 a.m. and I know I started this at before 9 o'clock. So anyway, we'll continue from here. From Terry Allen. That's why they want us back in the US to be back in war. Yes, I don't know what you were commenting on, but yeah, they do want to put us back into war. All right, I'm right on target. Good. It's good to be on the front lines and on target. Thank you for joining me on the front lines. Okay, I say, if the trust has already paid off the national debt, wouldn't those tens of trillions have gone to the owners of the Federal Reserve? Wouldn't this empower them to perform the greater forms of evil? So who owns the Federal Reserve? The trust. So who did they pay off? The trust paid the trust. We're talking about an accounting maneuver, right? So they was paid off. So it did not empower them to take that money and go and do things with it because they didn't own the Federal Reserve. It was part of a trust. Okay, Ian says, I think most here are aware of this, Dan. You're housing at the open door. Well, I'm sure that a lot of people are, but it's some people that will watch the video won't be. And if we can add, I can add some context, some things that they may not have been thinking about. It's good for us to kind of rehash it. And this was a 15-minute video, right? That kind of really summed up this. And one thing I liked about it is it's really is taking some information that came way out of the past. This original information you tell was done back in the, I think in the 50s and 60s. So it's good to see add some more perspective to it as well. Okay, Benjamin is a white dragon, not good. He's an offspring of Bush. I don't know what Bugsy is. I think you're talking about Benjamin Fulford. I want to just say that Benjamin Fulford, and he talks about the White Dragon Society. This is not the White Dragon family. Just one point to make about that. Is Benjamin Fulford some sort of controlled opposition side? I don't think so. My impression is that's not the case. I could be wrong. Him wanting to, take a stab at how to correct things in the world. I would applaud the things that he's doing. He wants to call it the White Dragon Society. He said many times that it is a coalition of patriots in secret societies that want to change the things for the better. And I have no doubt that within all of these groups that we've been discussing, that there are people that don't enjoy being on the dark side. And even if they thought they were on the right side of things, that they may not have realized how deep that they would go down that road, and they want to change things. So that being said, I do not know, one way or another, but I appreciate Benjamin Fulford greatly, and I see that he's been doing some positive things. Just as like Neil Keenan, I appreciated Neil Keenan and the information he provided, and going out and filing a lawsuit for the Dragon family against the cabal. This just provides some background information, and their success is always challenging. Even Swiss Indo, the success of Swiss Indo, they had 11 payments to make, and they did 4, and the 5th one they got hung up on. Right? They made a deal with Deutsche Bank and to give out all this money through debit cards, and made a physical deposit in Deutsche Bank. And then then the 2 co-presidents of Deutsche Bank lost their jobs a couple months apart. There's the systems are set up against them losing control against it. This Kim having problems. If the system is set up and that she has every right to access and put the stuff in the system and owns the Federal Reserve, or the trust owns the Federal Reserve, she should be able to say how things happen. But they don't want to let go of power. It's a big power struggle, and to think that they're just going to decide, okay, well, you win, and throw up their hands, I just don't see it happen. Anyway, so let us continue. Let's see if I can zoom back in, make this big. Here. There's Benjamin Fulford. So I'm just looking at JAGR. Thank you, Laura P. But this is the banking cabal here in the U.S. running short of funds. Pardon me if this sounds silly, but we have way fewer planes spewing out solar radiation management stuff, chemtrails. Well, I think that all of the system is running out of funds. Right? It's designed to do that. The only thing keeping it running is the currency, the exchange of the money. And when that money is floating around out there in the economy, it's going around and around and around and around. It's only when it gets back into the bank, right? When someone goes and makes that cash, puts a deposit into the bank, or electronically as well, but when that goes back into the bank, is it then in the bank's hands? And we've heard where just recently, where last week, that that the Federal Reserve asked them, if all the banks, for their liquidity, and they were going to turn around and give them a lot more back because they were going to put it on a trade, and then give them back more, but it didn't work twice. So all that extra liquidity that came back into the bank is not available in the bank for the bank then to put it back out into the economy. So the actual currency out there floating around doesn't have the ability to move because there's less and less. It becomes more restrictive. And as for the chemtrails being less, that's good to hear. I would say that's probably an action of Q and the military trying to shut down these programs. They shut down the satellite system, so they cut off their eyes and ears. They stopped the satellite system, after the fires in California. The DO laser system seems to have been shut down as well. So I think that these systems are coming to an end. Let's continue here. Yeah. So here in Southern California, could the folks that do this be running out of funds to do this? I would guess that's quite expensive. Yeah. Anyway, I think I just answered that. Yeah. California especially is a major center of that and should be evacuated, as Pete Peterson once told me when he was evacuating back in, I think it was year 2000. It may have been 1999, but 2000, somewhere around there. Okay, the trust owns the Fed, right? That's what I was saying. So Nicholas is confirming what I was just saying. So the trust owns the Fed and the buildings. Kim paid the Rothschilds 22 trillion, had a talk with herself and put the money back in the trust, from what I understand. That's basically it. Oh, I see Tui. Hey, Tui. Okay. Hey, Tui, I hope you get on the Dank Live in about half an hour. We should be running again. Okay, let's see. Well, there was a question. I just saw it and then it jumped. There we go. Who was the narrator of the video and who set up who set up the Catholic Church? I don't quite recall. I do remember seeing this video a long time ago, but I'm sure someone else can answer the questions who it was, because it was part of an anonymous official video. I know Thomas has talked about Benjamin Fulford as well. As I said, I don't know anything specific. All right, so I do appreciate that information that I got from Benjamin Fulford over the years, and it provided some interesting look into the Japanese side of what has been going on. I do find it interesting that that Trump has now been in alignment, or they've come together with Japan, and that there's a new emperor of Japan, and that the prime minister of Japan is now coordinating his tweets with QAnon. Very interesting. And then Trump headed to England, so I found that interesting. The power went from the Holy Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Yes, well, that I believe is the truth. That it's basically the Rome became the Catholic Church, the old Roman Empire. Yeah, by way of Constantine. That's basically it. All right. So we've gotten to the bottom of the chats. So, all right, guys. Oh, I went the wrong way there. So we're gonna, in half an hour, we'll be starting again with the Dank Live. So I welcome you to join us back here in about half an hour, and we will continue on our topic with the Manna World Holding Trust, and maybe we get an interesting update. Though it is the weekend, so I don't see much will be happening about funds moving, but you never know. All right, until then, please subscribe. Give your thumbs up. I say we've got 71 watching and 31 thumbs ups. Please go ahead and give your thumbs up. Be sure to share the link, pass this around, even if you've done it before. Just go to your Facebook, go to any of your social media, and paste this link. Ask people to watch it. Until then, we'll see you later.